Broker Bulletin acknowledges the traditional custodians of all the lands across the country on which we record our podcast and pays its respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Broker Bulletin podcast, where better begins. Join us as we chat with brokers about what's working for them, what drives them, and the real challenges and wins that matter most right now.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome wherever you are listening throughout Australia and New Zealand to another broadcast of Success Breeds Success. And this is the series where I'm fortunate enough to be able to talk to some of our leading brokers in our industry about their journey, what's made them successful, some of the challenges they faced, and get a chance to get questions from you that I can pose directly to our resident broker for the day. You're in for a bit of a treat today. I'm delighted to be joined by Amanda Young. Amanda's a real personality in our group. She's a business owner based at Brookvale in the northern beaches of Sydney. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And thanks very much for joining us. You formed great relationships with our brokers right throughout New South Wales and beyond. Just to give people some context, a little bit about you and your business, can you just take us through where it is today?
So my business today is myself as the head broker and my fairies, who I like to call them. They're my CSMs. They all refer to me as the relationship keeper. So
Right.
that's my job. That's my role in the business. I've got two amazing casual staff members. I've got one full-time. The two casuals based in the office with me. The other full-time person is actually based down in Wollongong, but so she's remote, but she comes up once a month and hangs out with us. And then I've got one offshore as well.
So it'll be great to dive into that whole, how you manage remote staff and how you go into that. But we'll get into that journey.
Yeah.
You've been in loan market now for how long now?
4 years.
Nearly 5 years?
Yeah, 4 years, yep.
As a loan market business owner. But before then, you had a career in finance. Take us through how you got into this industry and a little bit about that journey.
When I thought about working for a bank, which was the last thing on my mind, my closest friend at the time said to me, "Mans, they have really nice uniform." So that's why I decided to join Westpac.
Was that when how old?
Early 20s, like
Okay.
2023, I think I was in then. So, and that's why I joined, because I thought, oh, that's a nice uniform. I could wear that every day. I like uniform. Then I basically just worked my way up through the ranks. So it was back when, you had to earn your stripes in banking to get somewhere. So I started as a teller and did that for a couple of years, then went on to being one of the people who opens up the accountants. So sat there and opened up the accountants. And then I learned a little bit about business banking in that stage. And then I was actually approached to be a branch manager. So I was a branch manager for a couple of different branches. And then I jumped over into business banking in just before GFC.
Right. Well, GFC was a pretty amazing time for it. Well, no doubt you got some recollections, but let's keep going.
Yep.
And then we'll come back to the GFC.
Yeah. So that was business banking. I stayed in business banking for probably the rest of my career with Westpac, which kind of ended in 2015. Had my babies in that time and stuff like that. And then I jumped over to RAMS and I worked there until basically Royal Commission, to which then I saw that I wasn't going to be able to have the opportunity to broker and give my clients options. And because of where I specialize in self-employed, I needed options. And I was like, nah, this isn't going to work anymore. So then that's when I jumped.
And it's a shame to see what's happened with RAMS, obviously, in the last couple of years. Obviously, Westpac's decision to close RAMS down. There's so many good operators in that business that obviously found that challenging times. But we'll go into that maybe a bit later, talking about some of the industry issues. So in that journey, you've had a number of different experiences right the way through.
Yes.
I forgot to at the beginning just to advise all our viewers, if you've got a question, if you're looking at this through Zoom, put in the Q&A chat box and I'll be looking at that and putting questions to Amanda. Or if you're listening to this through LinkedIn, if you want to put a question in the comments section, our team's going to lift that up and put it into the Q&A section here. So feel free to jump in. Okay, so you started your business then 4 years ago with us in loan market.
Yep.
Just tell us a bit about how that came about in moving over.
I started smack bang in the middle of COVID.
Right.
So everything, we went, in our industry, we went from being face-to-face with everybody to straight online. And obviously a lot of clients didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to do. And I was in my garage. So I remember...
I'm sure a lot of brokers can really relate to that. It was sort of getting some space and you got family.
I do. I have two children, and at the time they were both in primary school, so that was fun.
Yeah, juggling that must have been a real challenge.
There was no juggle, mate. It was hell. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one of the things that my children had to do was they said, Australian culture. I had no time to do Australian culture, so I sat them in front of the castle. That's what I did.
That was their education.
I said, there you go.
Probably not a bad version.
Well, the year 5 teacher at the time laughed and thought it was amazing. The kindergarten teacher, not so much, didn't love it as much. But yeah, it was what it was. So yeah, I was in the garage and then when I realized like I'd never used a Zoom or Teams or anything before. So I didn't even know they had backgrounds. And I was looking at my hubby going, they can't see my laundry. This is not okay. So he put up curtains. So I had curtains as my backdrop, and that was how I did.
And was it busy from the beginning, or did it take a little while to build some momentum, or how did you go about?
Do you know what? The second I put it out there, I think it was within 3 months I was writing my first loan.
Right.
And then it didn't stop really from there. And that was quite hard to kind of keep up. Like there were days where I was drowning going, how am I supposed to do this whole homeschooling thing with the kids? And yeah, it was
it's
tough.
One of the real challenges, isn't it, with broking is that your window for perfection is quite small. It's often we're either not busy enough or we're too busy, and both of which bring stress. And so getting that just right is very difficult sometimes.
Yeah. It was tough.
We should tell the viewers, one of your specialities is in small business lending. And,
yes.
Yeah, and so you got a pretty tight demographic that you target.
Yes.
Do you just want to explain a bit about that and how that came about?
When I worked for Westpac, I was the small business finance manager for the beaches. And so I made it sort of my mission to go to each branch every week and be able to see clients and that sort of stuff. So I learned that's my tool of trade. That's what I do. And that's where I learned I love this. I love being able to help people who walk in and go, I don't know what to do. Yeah. And I went, no, this is my jam. This is what I want to know. How I got the job, I'll never know, because in the interview, they actually said it was a 3-hour interview, and they said to me, take me through these financials. And I'd never seen financials in my life. And I went, wow. I don't know, but let's figure it out. And then I got the job. So,
and did they give lots of training to you after that? Like, how did you become proficient at this? Was it just practicing more and more?
Yeah, a little bit. So they did give you training, but a key thing that I did was I would actually go and take the time to go and sit in with credit.
Right.
There's a lot to be said for doing that, absorbing and being in an environment or around people that know what they're talking about. So I'm always a fan of, if you want to hit something, go hang with the people who are higher than you, because you're going to glean from them, and you'll hear something, you'll learn something. And that's really what I did.
And that built your proficiency and
absolutely.
Capability. How big a part of your business now is tradies and small business owners?
90%.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, easily.
And so, and because you're doing that now, you've become specialised in that, you create
Correct.
a reputation in that space, and that's bringing more than more.
We're not a conveyor belt business. Basically, if we get 2 PAYG clients, my team are like, don't touch it. I'm like, why? And they're like, because you'll stuff it up. You'll read a pay slip wrong. Like, that's kind of how removed from the PAYG space I am, because I'm so all into financials. You
mentioned you've got a team now, you call them your fairies.
My fairies.
When did you start that? Because that's always one of the things when I talk to brokers, one of the challenges they have is, like, I'm so busy, I'm sort of not enjoying it. I didn't start this business to work 80 hours a week, and I'm not happy. I'm not seeing my family enough. There's all that challenges you have when you get successful, but it's hard to take that step to put someone on. How did you find it? Was you nervous about it? Did you do it straight away? Did it take you some time?
I think so. For me, I bought my first fairy on part-time around the 4-5 month mark, because I was just inundated. I could not keep up. It wasn't humanly possible.
What's inundated mean? Just to put a perspective for other brokers listening.
A lot of inquiries.
Mm-hmm.
And
How many roughly?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Probably 10 or 12 in a week, maybe.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So it was a lot. When I was converting them, I realised I actually couldn't physically get the docs, do the loan, do the compliance, all that sort of stuff in a timely manner. Timely to me is like within basically 48 hours, I want their documents back to the client. You know what I mean? Yeah. Plus, I was still learning a whole new system at the time, right?
Yeah, so you just come over from Rams into my CRM.
So I had my CRM, file invite, all these things, and I'm going, how do they talk to each other? I don't understand how that works. How can I be better at this? I had no idea. I didn't even know you could relabel things. So every deal just took a longer time to do than what I would have liked it to do. I bought my first fairy on, and then it was only a matter of, I'd say, another 6 months after that, I bought the next one on.
Yeah.
And then very closely after, like a month after that, I bought the other one on. So I had 2 casuals and then 1 part-time.
How do you find managing a team? Because when you start to build that out, that your role changes a lot and you start to have to do things differently to make it work. Was that a difficult transition for you to be able to manage staff? And you've got them remotely now. Have they always been remote?
No. Well, I mean, COVID, yeah.
Yeah, that's
COVID,
true.
they were.
Yeah.
Everyone was remote. They didn't
yeah.
change at all. So this is where I'm probably not the best person to talk to about staff, because I love my staff and I find it very easy to manage people.
Right.
But that's because I hire for my weaknesses, not my strengths. You definitely do not want 2 of Amandas in an office, okay? It will not work.
Yeah.
Because
how did you find that? Because that's quite a difficult thing to actually work out what you're good at and what your strengths are and what type of people you need to augment you. And you've always been someone who's been fairly authentic. I think it's been one of the strengths you've had, and people talk about, how genuine and real you are. But how did you work that out about what you're good at and what you need help with?
You fall. You fail.
Take us through that. What do you mean by that?
So one of my definite weaknesses is if you put a spreadsheet in front of me and a checklist and I have to follow those bit by bit, I am not your person.
Right. Okay.
I am not your person to do that. I am high level. This is how I work. I can do these. We can strategically paint this picture. It's going to be great, but I can't get into that detail.
Right.
So I have one of my fairies who, if you put a spreadsheet and a checklist in front of her, she's in her heaven. She's like, this is great. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I had to fail. And that hurts. Like sometimes, I had one of my accountants actually take me out for lunch one day. And when I talk referrers, I don't pay referrers. They don't pay me. There's no money that exchanges hands, and I refuse to do it. That's a personal thing. Mm-hmm. One of my accountants took me out for lunch one day and she said, what happened 6 months ago? And I said, why? And she said, because I sent 2 clients to you and you actually never got back to them.
Yeah, wow.
And I went, okay, there's something wrong in my process here. What do I need to change? Like anything, you just need to fail at it.
Yeah.
But you need to fail and be able to look at yourself in the mirror and go, okay, how can I do that better? And just be better.
And did you struggle with that for a while? Like in terms of, getting feedback for all of us is important.
Yeah.
And I get lots of feedback on how we can improve our business and things as well. So how do you take that feedback and not wallow in it? Is that something you used to do, or say, I'm not good enough, or something's wrong with me? Or was it really, mate, I need more support coming in?
So twofold. The first one is, yes, I give myself a pity party. I'm allowed to have that.
Yeah.
And then I generally go home and I bounce it off my hubby, who's an amazing sounding board for me. But then I go, okay, well, that's not going to work. How are you going to get better at this? Let's go. And it's a little bit of a mirror moment. I'm a talk to myself in the mirror person. Okay, what are you going to do?
So you made that decision. Then how long did it take you to find the right person? And have you had situations where you had to invest in staff and they've left?
So my first fairy left after the first 18 months, I think, close to 18 months. That hurt, but she actually needed to go and do a different career path. Right. And so I understood that. And then I couldn't find a replacement for a long time. And so I just did the business on the 2 casuals and myself.
Right.
And that was hard.
I bet.
Because the 2 casuals were really only about a 0.6 of an FTE, if you're lucky. So it was really just me and the 2 fairies. Yeah. And so that was tough. And tell me, how do you introduce your fairies to your clients? How do you get them involved from the beginning, or do you get them involved from the beginning? Absolutely.
How do they see you as a team? Because I know some brokers have a concern. Look, I'm the front person. I'm the star. I need to be delivering service to my client. I feel uncomfortable about outsourcing to someone else, and maybe they don't think I care about them enough or whatever. How do you position that with your customers?
Easily. In the first meeting that I have with them, I say, I'm your strategic person. This is what we're going to do. This is how we do it. When it comes to getting your documents, my fairies are going to deal with that. I literally call them my fairies. On some of our Google reviews, they go, your fairies are amazing. Because to me, they flutter around in the background to get stuff done and bring it back to me. But what I say to clients, they go, well, the fairies are going to look after you. They're going to relabel your docs. They're going to come back to you if something didn't upload correctly or whatever. Your loan application will not come back to me until you've got your documents done.
We've got a question that's come through on the box. Can you talk about your hiring process is the question? Like, how did you go about finding your team? Yeah, you mentioned you got some remote staff members. Maybe just take us through how that's worked for you, how you've done that.
So I think people are going to hate me. One of my casual fairies was introduced to me from an old work colleague who his wife is a physio. So,
and how did they know to introduce you to that person? Were you broadcasting?
They knew that I was looking for somebody.
You go and tell everyone, look, I'm looking for staff. Like everyone.
Everyone knows. Everyone in my network will know that I'm looking for somebody.
Yeah.
So that was how that one came to me. And she's not my forever person either. So she's actually a uni student who came to me and didn't know the difference between a credit card statement and a home loan statement and a savings statement. She'd never seen them before. And remember that when COVID was on, we used to call banks and be on the phone for an hour on hold. It was long, you know. So coming into a business where you don't know what things look like, and then you have to sit on the phone and you ask one question and then hang up and then I go, but what about this? And they go, getting the phone again. That's how you learn, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first one. So she sort of came to me that way, but she won't be with me forever. She's probably only got another year with me, and then that's it. The other one I worked with a very, very long time ago at Westpac, and we actually ran into each other with masks on outside Woolies.
Yeah, wow.
and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I've just started my own business. I'm looking for someone." And she goes, "Hey, my kids are now back at school. They're all at school now. I'd like something where I can work mum hours." I'm like, hello, that'll do. So that's how that one came along. The other remote one now is based in Wollongong. She approached me because she liked my vibe.
Yeah.
So that was that.
And I think it's a great comment you make about using your networks to recruit, because a lot of recruitment, I think, is done from people who know you, know how you work. Always being on for recruitment is a big thing, I think. And so using networks, I think, is a really effective way of finding that. And how many times did you have to interview to find the right people? Is it a lot of interview process, or is it more that you worked with the people you had and trained them up over time, or was it?
That's exactly it. So with the two casuals, it's just their roles have evolved based on their strengths and my weaknesses. Yeah. And so they've then honed in on what they can do.
Because I imagine with the uni student, it would have taken a fair bit of training on your part to get her to the point where she became as proficient as she is.
Absolutely.
That was probably in stuff you didn't really like by the sounds of it. Probably she had to really double down on box ticking and forms and checklists.
Yeah. Or I may have delegated a little bit to the other fairy who knows what she's talking about more than I do. But yes.
So the team gave that environment of learning.
Absolutely. To me, learning and development can't come from one person.
Yeah.
I say this nicely, but as a leader, you're only as strong as your weakest player.
Yeah.
So if you have someone in your business who's not up to scratch, well, you need to then go and make them up to scratch. And if you can't do it, you need to find someone on your team who can do it, and you need to take workload off them to allow them to do that. For me, it's all about our team.
How do you run your team? Do you have team meetings every day? How do you talk through issues that can be improved? How much comes from them? How much is top down? Maybe just give us a bit of background on that.
Mate, if you think that I do any more than pay the bills in my office and make sure that we have deals to do, that would be wrong. I don't. I always say I'm not in charge. I'm like, I'm not the person who's in charge here. I just pay the bills. And I've said that to my clients and they laugh at it because they're like, that's hilarious. I'm like, well, I know I do more. I'm sure I do more.
I suppose a lot of your small business owners would resonate with that comment.
Oh, absolutely. But your team needs to have their own ownership over things in the business.
Yeah.
Like with their KPIs. We have a business KPI. But we also have the individual KPIs where it's role specific to them.
Have they set them, or have you set the KPIs, or do you set them together? How do you do that?
We've set them together. Yeah. So I've said, okay, well, if we need to achieve this as a business.
And what do you say? What do you need to achieve as a business?
We need to, what we have as a settlement target for the year.
Can you share that with us?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was getting it.
Whatever. Open book. So for this year, we want to settle 70 mil.
Yeah.
Which I know is probably not shooting the lights out for a lot of businesses out there, but for me,
I think average for MFWA put the average out. I think it was somewhere around 15 mil, just to put it in context.
Which makes me cry. But anyway, let's go.
Yeah. We can maybe talk about that later.
Yeah, that's right.
So 70, and then what you break that down into a whole bunch of targets around this is activity.
Correct. And so how many lodgements we need to do? Well, that's one fairy's job. How many appointments we need to do? That's on me.
Yeah.
That's my KPI. The smoothness of the settlement and Google reviews is another fairy's KPI. So it all kind of works that way. And then if they achieve those targets and we achieve our target broken down into 2 parts, then they get a bonus based on their wage.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's go to appointments because you brought that up. Prospecting, seeing more customers.
Yeah.
How do you think about that? How do you do it? For example, what would happen if you're not getting enough of them, or what happens if you get too many of them at one particular point in time? Just maybe take us through those, how you think about that.
Yeah. So game changing for me was Calendly. I love that thing.
Do you want to explain Calendly just for those who may not be aware of it?
Yeah. So Calendly's an application. It's
a link you can put on your emails and
put it on my emails. I have the link in my phone. So when clients text me, I can say, hey, book me in via this link, and it goes straight to your diary, and you can take out time that you don't want to see people and time that you do want to see people. I'm a working mum. So my hours are between basically 9:30 and 2:30 because I can't guarantee you I'm going to be available after that time.
Yeah.
And if I can't guarantee that, I'm not putting in my diary.
Yeah.
So all my appointments are in that short span. 95% of my appointments are actually online. And that's mainly because the majority of my clients are self-employed.
Yeah.
They don't want to travel to get somewhere. I mean, look, if someone walked into my office in a suit, seriously, that'd be a problem.
Yeah.
I'd be like, wrong office. Mate.
Yeah. Okay, right.
But it allows them to just book in whenever suits them.
Yep.
And then I do finish it and I sort of say, look, I do have an after hours appointment available once a week, and I have that booked out, but I don't offer it on there.
Okay.
So if they can't find a space, then I've always got that space there, because I do have teachers and stuff like that as well, and that's hard they can't really see you between 9 and 3. That's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know if the team can put in the Calendly address just for those who are looking at it. So, but it's a diary management tool where clients can book into your diary, book their appointments.
You're better with words than I am.
No, just want to make sure that we've got that.
It's a diary management tool.
But it is. So you then control how, when people come in.
Yes.
So what happens when the Calendly's not filling up enough? Do you panic? Do you, the appointments of the week are down? Do you think what's happened? Or do you go out and do a bunch more prospecting? Or tell us what you do.
Make a call to some maybe current clients.
Yeah.
But I actually have.
And why do you do that? Out of interest, why current clients? Is that for new clients?
Oh, that's how my business is growing. I don't market myself at all. I'm organically growing is the best way to put it.
What do you say on that phone call to current clients if you're not busy?
Well, I just check in, make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
And
what happens after that?
They usually say to me, oh, hey, I've spoken to a couple of people. I go, yeah, good, keep doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't actually ask them for an appointment.
Yeah.
Because like attracts like, right? If you've got a client who's self-employed, the chances are their mates are probably self-employed. If they're having a great experience, they're talking to their other mates who have had a great experience.
Yeah.
So I've never really had that. And I know when people are starting out, people tend to say, oh, I went to all my family and friends. I've never gone to my family and friends.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, wow.
If they come to me, that's different.
So there is a question that's come through, and I know this was a while ago and when you first started, and let's say first started at Loan Market, maybe just but welcome if you want to talk about Rams as well. How did you first get the word out when you first started? How did you start saying, here I am, come and talk to me? Yeah. How did you do that?
There was like an email template that I sent out. I did a play on words.
Right.
Because I'd left Rams and there was like maybe a month when I was basically down, I did Where the Bloody Hell's Amanda?
Right.
And so I played on the whole.
That was also the
Australian
tourism thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I did that.
Yeah.
Which is as creative as I get, I just like to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're quite creative, actually. Some of those other things you're talking about, I think quite pretty clever.
Yeah, I can't draw a picture to save my life, but other stuff I'm okay. So I did that and I sent emails out and did it on the socials.
To who?
To people that I just knew.
Right,
Anybody.
Okay. Right.
Anybody that I knew
LinkedIn?
that I was starting. Yes, LinkedIn I did. And
social,
and Facebook.
Facebook. Are you a Facebook person outside of work?
I'm a Facebook person outside of work.
Yeah.
I'm not a LinkedIn person outside of work, which is probably really bad because I think they're doing it on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I'm sure that's fine.
So that was it.
Okay.
And funnily enough, I actually had a couple of people contact me going, great, I've followed your career since you were in Westpac.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Little creepy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then again, organically grew from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So slower start at the beginning, but you got busy pretty quickly.
I did. So looking back, if I knew the systems and stuff, it wouldn't be any busier than I am today.
So let's change that question a little bit and say, what advice do you give to someone now who's saying, listen, I'm getting started. What advice would you give to somebody knowing what you know today? And obviously there's different sort of demographics people specialize in and stuff, but let's say they're starting in mortgage broking, not necessarily SME specialists, just say general mortgage broking. What would you advise people to do?
So if you're starting out, I would say you've just got to work hard and work hard to know your craft, to really understand what your specialty is going to be and know it. And then just get out there and spruik yourself. You've got to back yourself.
Yeah.
You've really got to back yourself and be okay with failing.
There's a lot of work that goes into being a broker. A lot of people
goodness.
A lot of people don't see that work. There's marketing. You got to build your brand. You got to get out and start talking to people. You got to get your product knowledge right. You then start seeing clients. So you got to be seeing clients and prospecting at the same time. So there's no one who's successful hasn't worked bloody hard to get there in our industry. I don't believe. And we're seeing it recently. A lot of people going through CSM ranks to become a broker in time. Do you see that as part of your career progression of your team? Like start off in administration and over time become a broker? How do you feel about that model?
Look, if they want to, I would be very supportive of that. Yeah. I just have fairies who don't.
Yeah.
They're happy to sit behind the scenes and do their thing and let me do my thing. But yeah, absolutely. I'm mentoring somebody at the moment, which is really great to see them learn things and they understand that, okay, so something's not as simple as just this. And I'm like, no, you got to go and, smash out a whole bunch of pricing for this client. And I said, could I go to all these different banks? And I'm like, no, because that's not going to work for that client. So you're going to need this. So it's important to have your knowledge base, right? But you're not going to learn that if you're sitting in your office. So it's about getting out to like the PD days. It's about going and talking. I mean, I can't be bothered doing coffee with BDMs every 5 seconds. I really can't be bothered because if I need you, I'll call you.
But it takes a while to get known in that space too, like, being worth it for a BDM to come and see you.
1,000%, absolutely. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm always like, I respect BDM's time.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to call them and say, hey, will you do this?
I think that's one of the reasons behind the growth in broker businesses. And if I look at some of the things in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, one of the changes I think's happened is that we've seen practices develop, teams, leaders with staff like yourself. That was the exception to the rule 5 years ago. I think everyone was maybe it was a single person, maybe with one support staff maybe, but we're seeing now bigger teams growing. And I think a big part of that is it's getting harder to start without an infrastructure around you and a support mechanism, leadership, education, prospecting.
Absolutely. You've just got to make sure that you've got the right people behind you, but you've got to have your knowledge base, definitely.
So let's go in a bit more into broking. So you spoke before. It's awesome. You got a supportive husband who you mentioned before. So
he does all right, that one.
Big call out to him at the moment. That's a good replay. How important are communities? How important is your peer group? Because it is a lonely business, isn't it? This business, it can be very isolating. You're working long hours, and I'm sure whilst you said you're working 9:30 to 2:30, I'm not sure there's a lot of stuff that happens outside of that time and things. But how important is community, and how do brokers not be lonely?
I think I was put in a privileged position in some ways because in loan market, we're quite community focused. And in COVID, the state manager at the time, MK, brought together small groups of people so that they could meet, once a week, once a fortnight over Zoom or Google Meets. I was just quite fortunate that I found my people.
Yeah, cool.
I found my tribe.
How many in that tribe?
There's about 10 of us, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And we all have different stages of business, but we all kind of in some ways have a thread of we're kind of going through the same thing because, yes, it is lonely. Banks, credit policies change all the time. Their appetite, so credit risk appetite is something that you're never going to know until you speak to your BDMs and you get stuff knocked back or whatever. That's not something you can control. That's a bank thing. So having this tribe of people who you can speak to and go, hey, have you guys found this? Am I going nuts? And it's just the best. Yeah. And we keep each other accountable. We keep each other accountable for our goals and what we want to achieve. We are each other's biggest fans.
Yeah.
I just love them.
So when you have a crap day, they're the people you pick up the phone to or you jump on and say, mate, I had a bad day.
Mate, I've jumped on. I remember one particular deal that hurt my heart. Was very recent, was where I had spent 2-3 months working with this client. They wanted to buy a business. We needed to get projections. So I went to the accountant, worked out what they needed to do, how they needed to do it, basically gave my IP away. And they called me and said, our accountant said he can do it through our broker quicker. We're going to go to him.
Yeah, it's a bad day.
Those guys copped the brunt of me being really cranky because I got off that phone call, jumped onto that chat with them, and they were like, "Hey, mans," and I'm like, "Oh my freaking goodness!" And I lost it, and
I'm sure every broker listening to this has had that experience.
Oh, it hurts your heart. But you know what? They were my people. So I'll tell you what my hubby and kids did, but they were my people that like got the forefront of it, and they were like, "Okay, do you know what, mans? You actually didn't want to borrow that client anyway because they're not your person." And they calmed me down. And then, and then my backup to that was that night I got home and my kids were waiting at where I parked the car with my hoodie and my slippers. And I walked inside and my husband had a cup of tea and Cool Runnings on the TV ready to go and some cookies and went, just sit.
Well, you're probably making other people jealous this part. So,
doesn't happen every day, people.
So you have that group. It's more from being a virtual group now. You meet.
Yeah, we do. So we probably try and do a nice lunch every year together.
Yeah.
And then we actually go away for a retreat once a year as well. And that's where we unpack our businesses and talk about what the goals are, what we want to achieve, how we're going to achieve it. And then we challenge each other. One of us was poor Lise, I'll call her out, but Lise got ripped a new one like a couple of them ago where it was to do with cybersecurity and stuff like that. And we were like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh my gosh, okay, calm down, everybody." And then, of course, at this one, she was like, "Okay, I fixed it all. It's all good." Yeah. We were like, "Yeah, good." Yeah. That wasn't her fault, but that's the kind of community that we have. Like, we call each other out on stuff and we go, "Hey, I think you need to think about it differently."
I think it's important, not just for the specific deal, as you mentioned, which you need that just mental health thing, but also for thinking about your future and where you're going. And you were part of the Elevate program recently, which is slightly different to that. Something that's different cohort.
Yep.
MK is probably a similar connection to both of those. But do you want to tell us about your experience in Elevate over 6 months? You were the first group through.
Yeah. So we were the guinea pigs. But that was okay. So when I was invited to do Elevate, I actually really questioned it because I was like, I want to do it, but
actually we should probably say what Elevate is just for people who don't know.
You.
Oh, okay. All right. So Elevate is a coaching program designed to get like businesses together and go through on a 6-month program, a monthly sort of rhythm with some sessions face to face and some stuff remote, coaching remotely, and really a 6-month sort of journey and really looking at taking it from premier to platinum. So that sort of 30 mil to 100 mil sort of journey. Yeah. That's the sort of sweet spot, I think, in that space.
When I chose to do it, I sat down with my hubby and I said, I have to commit to this. Like, it's going to be once a month in the city because, we are a family who have children and we need to work out the drop-offs and pickups and stuff like that. So he was like, right, that's fine. We can work around that. And then I went to my staff and I said to them, "Okay, if I'm out of the business, is that going to be okay for you guys?" And they all basically smacked me over the head and said, "Don't be stupid. Get out the door.
Yeah.
We don't need you. Thanks." Fine, thank you. Along the journey, I'm not going to lie, it was hard. I was in the corner, in the fetal position most weeks, rocking backwards and forwards because I had to do spreadsheets. I had to get detailed. I had to really unpack my business numbers. Got to be honest, had never really done that before. It was just a really tough course. Yeah. However, it's cracker.
Yeah.
Like, it's an amazing course. It helped me be a better business owner.
Yeah.
It helped me look at my business and go, okay, how sustainable is this? How much do I want to grow? What does that look like? And how many people do I need to actually do that? And what type of people do I need to do that?
And do you feel like you've got a plan that is for you, your business, and also without sacrificing what's important to you in your life? Do you feel as though that's a bit of a roadmap for you now going forwards? Yeah.
I'm much more clearer on what I need to achieve and how I'm kind of going to do that. And there's some other pieces I need to kind of put in there. No business is ever going to be perfect. You're still going to have puzzle pieces that are missing, but there's definitely a better roadmap ahead. And it's nice now to come together. We're so similar to my broker crew. I've now got an Elevate crew and we still keep each other accountable. So even though the monthly meetings and stuff has stopped, the face-to-face stuff, we still meet online and we still keep each other accountable, and MK still bashes us, which you've really got to work on that.
Yeah, no, I've been trying to coach him a bit as well.
Seriously. But I love him. It's great because it just keeps you focused.
One of the things that industry talks a lot about is just attracting more female business owners into this. And there's some fantastic female business owners. How do we do that better as an industry, you think? And because it can be quite off-putting, that amount of work to start with. You don't have to sacrifice your family life to be successful. Do you think that's a message that it resonates with people? Or do you think it's we're so busy, we're always focused on stuff, we're just doing more and more and more and more? And I think you're a great case study that you can have both. But there's probably some times that's been challenged, I suppose.
I like to say you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. People talk about juggling balls in family life especially. Yeah. And I kind of go, actually, but it's what the balls are made of.
Yeah.
So sometimes, some days the balls are going to be made of glass and you need to catch those. And some days they're going to be made of plastic and they can bounce for tomorrow.
That's a great analogy. I've never heard that before.
I know. I love it, right? It's like my favourite.
Is that one of yours or did you hear it from someone else?
Do you know what? My cousin's wife sent it to me on Facebook because she was feeling really overwhelmed. And I went, I'm just going to steal that because I really like it. I really, really like it. And those balls change, right? So some days family is just going to have to, it has to come first, right? Yeah. And I know that people would like to say, your family's always first. Don't get me wrong. They're always, if something's happening, I'm going to drop and go. Yeah. I don't care. But there are days where I've got a settlement that needs to happen. Yeah. One of the sayings with my family is I say, we work right up to Christmas Eve in my office and my children are used to Christmas Eve dinner being Macca's. Yeah. And generally it's me on the phone going, grab me a McChicken. Okay, so you can exchange on that property. Go. You know what I mean? Yeah. But we know that. Yeah. It's just about choosing which balls need to be held and need to be kept up, and the other ones can drop and wait till tomorrow. So
let's do a couple of quick things before you got to wrap up because I know time's ticking away. The key things you want to focus on this next 12 months. Can you share that, maybe some things that top of mind for you in a business sense that you're saying, okay, what are the things that you really want to get better at as a leader this year, as a business owner, as a broker?
Oh, okay. As a business leader is just letting my team do their thing. Yeah. And I don't probably need to be there at every single morning meeting. Yeah, yeah. I think they can actually do it themselves. In fact, I know they can. Yeah. Because I've been late before. I've had I went and did my daughter's Father's Day stand. And I said, I'm so sorry I'm not there. And they said, yeah, we've done the meeting. Goodbye. Yeah. And hung up on me. Yeah. I was like, rude. Yeah. Okay, then.
Well, it's a great sign that you've built a team that's capable that when they do that. I think it's a great credit. When that happens, you're getting some stuff right.
They know the drill. They know how to get stuff done. So we're a really customer-centric business. So if it's not right for the customer, forget it. We're not doing it. They all know that. That's our culture. So that's one for me. And then obviously hitting my milestone would be really good. If I can get to elite, that would be amazing. Or pretty darn close. But I really want to smash that so that I can go, okay, we've got this, and just stay at that and stay at that level.
And is that going to be about more clients? Do you think? Is that what the focus?
Yeah.
Industry issues, industry sort of affecting all of us. Is there anything, there's been a lot of talk about digital, a lot of talk about technology. How do you think about that in your business? Do you think that as long as I look after my client, all that stuff is going to happen? Do you spend much time worrying about industry stuff?
So my hubby's in IT. Right. That doesn't mean I have an IT specialist that might handle, but I kind of do. He always says to me, never be the first cab off the rank. Yeah. I'm like, got it. Yeah. Roger that. Yeah. So in loan market, we've got smart data. I've turned it on. I've turned it off. I've turned it on. Some clients it works for, others it just doesn't.
Well, particularly with your demographic, self-employed is
that was a nightmare. Yeah. So I'm very picky and choosy on what I do and how I do it. I don't really worry too much about major industry stuff because I can't control it. Yeah. Can't control it. Yeah. Yes, there's obviously going to be an on-flow effect, but I just need to just stay abreast of it. But it does get my time. My time is focused on my clients and on my business. That's where my time is focused.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to finish off. I'm just looking to see, we're about to wrap up if there's any other questions coming through. If you're on LinkedIn, put in the comments section. If you're on Zoom, put us through on the Q&A box, and we'll try and get those questions answered. As a close, one of the things that can be daunting for a broker listening to someone like yourself is saying, well, she's doing so well. She seems like she's got everything together. It wasn't always the way through a journey. Can you maybe share some of the challenges maybe things you look back on and think this was really tough? Like you mentioned that client who you wasted that time, we spent all that time on, who ended up sort of getting put to another broker by the accountant. And that's obviously you don't want to deal with that accountant much anymore. But anyway, put that to one side. I think this industry has shown resilience. I think really over the years, through all the trials and tribulations people will talk about, brokers just kept bouncing, and there's a lot of rubber balls in this industry talking about like bouncing back, and broker shares now are well published at, in the 75% range. So it's growing as an industry. Just maybe some challenges that might sort of highlight to those listening that it isn't always easy, and sometimes you got to muscle up and get through some pain. Yeah,
absolutely. So the one thing I will say is I need you to keep in mind that people bank with people. They don't bank with banks.
Yeah. That's a good context.
I used to say that when I worked in the bank.
Yeah.
Because people make connections with people. You can do that online. You can do that face to face, but it's that person that will make a difference, and that person becomes that trusted person. And so then it'll become a situation of wherever you go, I'll follow. So keep that as your overarching, because at the moment the banks are playing hard. They're playing hardball. One of my fairies got a phone call from her bank saying, hey, just want to see if you want me to rewrite the loan internally.
Yeah, wow.
Like, no kidding you. Wow. Like, I went, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
No kidding. So they're playing hardball.
Yeah.
Because they just want to get their backs up our brokers. But they'll calm down because they'll realise, as they always do, you are going to fail, and that's okay. And just try and get yourself a little tribe of people who understand that, and don't just rely on family and friends, because that won't sustain you at all. That
learning from failure and not seeing it as a failure, but this is a lesson I've learned. I'm going to use it as juice to be able to get me to the next level and make a transition.
How can I do better? I've got a client who I've just spent so long with, and I'm just, I cannot crack it. And I'm like, how am I going to, and I just literally stand in front of the mirror and go, how can you do better? Just do better. How can you do better? So now I'm on my own journey with learning about how can I make that work better? How can I do that? I think that if you stop learning, you die.
Yeah.
You got to keep learning.
Yeah.
You might be seen as an expert in your field, but it still doesn't mean that you know everything about that field.
Well, 100%. I mean, the skills depreciate over time, like anything else, and that you're not consistently adding to that, you will progressively become less relevant. I think it's very true, and I think everyone can be learning more all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And needs to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, I think that brings us to the end of another Success Breeds Success. I think you'll join me in thanking Amanda for being so open and sharing with what you've been through and the business you've built. I think on behalf of all of us, congratulations for where you are, and really excited to see where you're going to get to, not just at the end of this year, but in the future, and see your business continue to grow. It's been terrific to have you here, Amanda Young. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
Look forward to maybe catching up again in a year's time or so and checking in and seeing how you're going.
Oh, progress. Yeah. We like a revisit.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you next time on Success Breeds Success.
Thanks for tuning in to Broker Bulletin. We would hate for you to miss an episode. Subscribe to Broker Bulletin in your favourite podcast app. Has this episode been helpful? We'd love you to rate and review us. It'll help us deliver content that's useful to you and help others discover us. If you have great ideas for topics worth tackling, or have burning questions you'd like addressed on an upcoming episode, reach out. Links in the show notes. See you next time.